Hello and welcome. This is gonna be a long video about my Bleeding Edge build. I recently completed the highest difficulty, and the build is, everyone knows that Bleeding Edge is very powerful right now. So expect a nerf in the future weeks. But even if they nerf the skill, they have to buff other skills. So at that time maybe we are gonna play something different. But even after the nerf, it's gonna still be viable because my current critical, my highest crit at the moment is like 15 millions. So yeah, it is very huge. So even maybe like 30% nerf, it will still gonna be a very powerful skill. So this is a very solid starter build, and you will notice that your damage is going up and up if you gear enough. I can still improve my character. I am not level 90 at the moment, so also my weapon isn't the best, but it is very good. So we are gonna talk all about that. So make sure you watch the whole thing if you are interested in the build. So also the build is very tanky, thanks to dodge, block, and high leech. So you maybe die maybe 1 or 2 times in a one sit of playthrough. I am playing a lot these days, so I maybe died once yesterday. So the build is very tanky, and also the damage is very high. So let's start with item explanations first, then attributes and talent tree. This is where I will talk about the items and which stats you should focus on. So I will let the gameplay run at the background so you don't get bored. So let's start with weapon. So unless you are playing in a group of friends, at least 2 people, you don't need a two-handed. But if you just finished campaign and you don't have enough gear, then you should play with a two-handed. Otherwise, your damage won't be that high. So if you have a very good one-handed, I'm talking about a legendary with 3 separate damage modes, then you should play with a two-handed. If you have a one-handed like I do, it doesn't have to be 400. Only 3 damage type is enough. So then you should play with one-handed because it is much tankier, because we also have a shield. So you have more block chance and also block efficiency. But if you have a very good two-handed, because the damage difference is huge, you can also go for two-handed. But as I said earlier, if you do not play in a party, it doesn't really matter that much. So for helmet, I will talk about skill tree after the items, but let me just talk about it real quick. So there is a talent on the tree that lets you get more resistance from your helm and body armor, so you can consider using a heavy base, helmet and chest. So my chest isn't a heavy base, but it can be. So other than that, you can use bruiser. So this applies for every piece of gear. So focus heavy on your chest and maybe helmet, then the rest is bruiser. So on your helmet you want, so you don't need to get all of them of course, but ferocity, crit chance, dodge chance, maybe some ailment chance on some of your gear, it can help. And these kind of stats, maybe some cooldown reduction, it doesn't really matter that much, but it helps a little with the cooldown on the shout, the war cry we have. I don't know what it's called, sovereign shout, I guess. So it helps the rage management a little. Yeah, it helps a little. So on your shoulders, again, same stuff. I forgot to mention damage. So damage, try to get damage on every piece, but you can skip on some of your parts. So other than that, ferocity, crit chance, dodge chance, same stuff. Also try to get resource cost reduction. It will say willpower and rage cost reduction, something like that, on your gloves and also shoulders, I guess. So it is very crucial to get at least 3 pieces. So it helps a lot. You will notice the difference. So get that cost reduction. So the chest is, again, as I said earlier, it's a heavy chest. So we will talk about the talent tree in a minute. So it is really important to get a high resistance chest. Maybe you noticed that my chest has a very high resistance, but the other stats aren't that good. So it doesn't matter really, just focus on resistances. If you are lucky, you will get a better chest, because the other stats are not that good on my chest. So just focus on high resist. So pants, again you can focus on dodge chance. My pants isn't optimal right now. So damage, dodge chance, crit chance, ferocity, all that kind of stuff, same. Boots, the most important one is movement speed, and then again same stuff, damage, cost reduction. There is also +1 stamina point, so you can get that if you want, and also focus on resist if you can. So for rings, so the base types, there are lots of base types, so obviously you don't want any with force shield. I don't know the name. Focus on other rings, so you can get resist or a dodge chance base, emerald rings. Steel rings are good for damage. So you want material damage and life if you can, and also resistances. These three stats are enough. So you only focus on three stats, the other isn't very important. So that will carry you a long way. So one important thing is, I have frost damage on one of my rings, but it would be better if I didn't have that, because, so let's say frost damage is currently bugged, but let's say you have a fire damage on one of your rings, so that isn't good. The reason for that is, when you kill a monster, you will get ailment damage stacks, and then it increases the base damage of your current damage. So you want to deal status and bleed all the time. So obviously you are playing Bleeding Edge, so most of it is already bleed, but you want status. So for that you need Aether damage. So as far as I know, there isn't Aether damage on jewelry for attacks. I believe it only has for spells. So I don't have any Aether damage on my gear, as you noticed, but we are using the chain hook skill. So it has status chance 100%. That's how I get my status stacks. If you have, let's say, fire damage on your ring, or maybe lightning damage to attacks, then whenever you attack you will get those stacks. So it is hard to get status again. So it will mess your build. So do not get any damage on your rings, elemental damage. But I have frost damage because it doesn't give any stacks. I think it is currently bugged, so it wasn't a problem for me. So that was a very important tip. So yeah, that's it. And for amulet, I think, did I talk about it? I don't know. Same stuff, but currently I am using +2 ailment inflicted. I believe it makes some difference. I tested it a little without Bleeding Edge because it is very hard to test it on Bleeding Edge. I use some other skills to test it, and I believe it is working. So what does it do? You basically apply more ailments each time you apply, so it is easier to stack your Bleeding Edge damage. So you need to do Untainted expeditions to get this. And for that, of course, you need some, I believe it's called primordial affinities, the purple currency under your gold on your inventory. You can check that. So it is very little pricey because it is 1,000 cost each time you go to enter the expedition, I mean. So you can get that +2 ailment amulet from there. Also there's for the same stat for belts, but I'm currently using the magic find belt to get more loot. But you can also use that kind of belt, or if you don't have any of these, just focus on material damage, physical damage to attacks, and also life and resistances. Moving on with attributes. So the main stat is ferocity and toughness, but you can skip some ferocity if you think your critical chance is enough. Currently I have 57% and I don't have crit or ferocity on some of my items. So you can, with this amount of investment, you can actually have more than 60%. So my advice is have at least 50% critical chance and then dump the rest into toughness. I mostly did like 2 or 3 points into toughness and 7 points or 8 points, depending on how much I did, to ferocity. So you get 10 points every level. So 2 or 3 toughness, the rest to ferocity. But you can go for more toughness after level 70 maybe. So once you start pushing those high levels. And passive tree now. So of course this is gonna be in the description. So go and check that when you are gonna make the build. So this build depends on ailment stacks. That's how you make those, big damage numbers. And also this is a critical build and also attack build. So we are gonna focus on passives that boosts all these kind of stuff. So make sure you switch the, rotate the talent tree and do it like this, or if you have a better way you can do that. Maybe this isn't optimal, I didn't check it. The last time I checked my tree is like 3 days ago, so maybe this isn't optimal now, maybe I can save some points, that's what I try to say. So feel free to try creating your own tree, because there are some obvious keystones that you want. These are keystones. So as long as you get those, you can save some points if you can take a shortcut. So starting off with weapon damage and crit damage. Crit damage is very important. I also picked 1 point here. I also consider getting this. Then I need to respect, because this point will be wasted. So rage cost reduction is also nice. You can also go like this if you want, and don't take these at early levels. But crit damage is very important, because there is not much place to get crit damage, so you need to get some on the tree if you can. So crit chance, get this big crit chance here. Once you have high crit, you can take this, because it lowers your base damage, but at the cost of increasing your crit damage a lot. Take this when you have at least maybe 40% crit, or maybe 50. Do not try to take this at early levels. So you want obviously stuff about ailments, so you can stack ailments. As you noticed, I didn't invest in any wisdom, so you need to get some ailment chance and other passives to boost your ailment stacking. So this lets you stack +2 ailment each time you hit. But this also lowers our damage a little, but those stacks will provide more DPS. So this is very important. Killing an enemy grants 5% damage for each ailment stack on that enemy. So once you have some stacks up, you will probably have bleed and status stacks on you, unless you equip some wrong jewelry. I mentioned that in the item section when I explained the rings and amulets, so check that out if you missed it. It is very important. You only want to deal Aether and bleed damage. So you want Aether damage because it will provide status, which I'm gonna talk about. You need that for this one. So let's finish up this. You basically get 5 stacks for each ailment, so you will have some damage boost while you are doing expeditions. Make sure you rush to the boss immediately. Always kill the monsters before the boss to refresh your stacks, so you can go in a boss with full stacks, because that is very important. Otherwise you will lose a lot of DPS. So this one, 50% chance to multiply the number of ailment stacks inflicted by 2. Again, stuff to boost our ailment stacking. And this is important. Can now apply +1 additional ailment. So this means normally you cannot, normally one skill, let's say Bleeding Edge, cannot inflict 2 separate ailments at the same time. Let's say you hit the monster once. If your highest damage is bleed, you only inflict bleed. Or it can be another skill. Let's say Havoc Orb. I don't know what the damage on that. Let's say fire. If it inflicts fire damage, it will inflict burn. Let's say you also have some cold damage on your rings, or maybe toxic damage, it doesn't matter, another type of damage. Whichever the damage is highest, you will apply that ailment. Normally it works like that. So if you pick this one, you can now apply both of those damage types. But if you have more than 2 damage types on a skill, let's say you can deal rend damage, toxic damage, lightning damage, aether damage, all of those at the same time, because you have those kind of damage types on your weapon, on your jewelry. So it will pick the highest 2 and you will apply those 2. So Bleeding Edge has a very high base rend damage, so it will apply bleed all the time. So you want that aether damage for your second damage type. So as far as I know, there is not any aether damage on the jewelry for attacks. I know that there are stats, affixes for spells, but I don't think there is any for attacks on the jewelry. So you want to put on your weapon, if you want, the correct gem on your offense 1 slot, so it gives aether damage to attacks. You can do that, but I don't do that because I'm doing something else. Let's explain that real fast. So we are using Tracker's Reach. So you basically hook the enemy. So there's a rune here, hook inflicts status on enemies, and this is 100%. So you don't miss at all. So what you want to do is, when you enter a rift, Diablo expedition, immediately use Tracker's Reach, apply that status and Bleeding Edge, kill that enemy. So you will see here that you will have 5 stacks of bleed stacks and aether stacks, and you are good to go as long as you keep killing enemies that won't get, you know, disturbed. Even if you get any other stack from somewhere else, normally you will keep the initial 2 stacks, but it can sometimes get screwed. So if you see, like, after some time before the boss of the expedition, let's say you have bleed and you lost the aether stack somehow, and you have maybe like toxic or something like that, just stop killing and chill for like 15 seconds, let your stacks drop, and go fresh again like this. Get your stacks, because you want that status all the time, that aether stack. Then go for the boss, otherwise your boss killing will be slower. So I think status works on bosses, so that's why I am explaining this. There is actually no way of me checking that, because it is almost impossible to see if the status damaged or not, because we are also dealing ailment damage, and these blades are dealing a lot of ticking damage all the time. So I think status work on bosses, so that's why. Let's go back to 3. So you want that aether stacks for this one. When you hit enemies, if afflicted with status, they take 100% of the hit damage again after a 1.5 delay. So this provides a lot of damage, so this is very crucial. So make sure that you deal that Aether damage. So this was a lot of explaining, but it is very important, so you need to understand this part. That's why I explained it longer. So here, Dire Juncture, this provides huge bonus to our survival ability. Make sure you get this as soon as possible. So you only take 40% of the damage of an attack, and then the rest after 1 second. So this basically delays the damage, so you can heal that 40% as soon as you get hit, and then get hit by the rest later. So this basically is a very huge damage mitigation, so you need to get this as soon as possible. But you will lose 15% of your maximum health, but if you check this one, you will get that 5% back, so you will play like 90% of your health. So you will lose a little health at the cost of yeah, you will lose some health and get some big damage mitigation, so this is very important. So here, Branded Burst, you will get a Tenet point every second, I believe. These are the Tenet points. You don't need to check those while doing expedition or anything. They are just passive, they work on their own. What they do is basically, for each stack you will have 15% damage reduction. If you also check this, you will have 5% more. I didn't get that. You can go for that if you want. So this is basically a passive damage mitigation that works on its own, so you don't need to do anything about it. It's very cool. So here, so I actually got this recently. You don't have to do that because I am leveling, still trying to go for 90, so I need to find some place to use my points. So you don't need to get this, but it's a little damage boost at melee range. So this is Global Life Leech. You need to get this very fast while leveling also. But of course, the lower your damage, the lower the leech is gonna be. So you won't notice that much of that leech while leveling. But this gets very powerful at endgame. So if you played Path of Exile back in the day, like maybe 2 years ago, before they nerfed Wall Pact, so you know what I try to say. You will get like instant heal all the time, like Wall Pact in Path of Exile. So you'll basically heal a lot. So you need that leech. This is very important because this is an attack build. So you need to leech that damage. And here 2% damage per 100 unspent rage. So this is some damage boost, but the most important one is here. 35 per rage generation on kill. So this basically lets you keep going while doing expedition killing monsters. We are also using 2 rage potions. You can use 1 rage potion and 1 health potion at low levels when your leech isn't enough, but at high end content, when you have good gear, you will leech insane amount. So just go with 2 rage potions. That sometimes that is only needed for bosses, because sometimes the bosses are annoying and you can't kill fast, so you will run out of potion. That's why 2 potions is good for end game bosses, high content. So let's see. So this is also very important, but it is currently bugged, so it will get nerfed soon, but I will probably gonna use it. I don't know, I need to see what happens to my resists after the patch. So you don't need to read all of this, so I'm gonna just explain very quick. So this is the stance, and when you roll it changes. So this one is defensive, increases block chance and block, so basically it does that. So when you are on this stance, chance for attacks to deal double damage. So this is a very good damage boost, so keep an eye on what's going on here and make sure you are on this stance before entering the boss. So it needs to, it needs some practice and you will get used to it. The bugged part about that is when you have the double damage stance, you will normally lose 25% of your resistances, but at the moment you don't lose those resistances. It is bugged, so you will normally lose some resistance after they patch it. But if you have some decent gear with resistances, I don't think that will be an issue, so I will probably gonna use this again. So this is a very powerful damage boost. So here, this is important, get this one while leveling as soon as possible. You will passively generate rage instead of willpower. Normally you will generate willpower, the game designed on its own like that, you know. But as you see, we are staying in the town doing nothing, and our rage is full at the moment because we will passively regenerate our rage thanks to that point here. So this one is very important. Skills have 100% rage cost when rage is over 750. But skill cast at this increased cost deal double damage. So this provides huge damage, but this will eat your rage a lot. So I recommend getting this after you have at least 3 pieces with rage cost reduction. Maybe 4 pieces even. So make sure you get that cost reduction, then take this one. You will notice a big difference, otherwise you will run out of rage so fast. So I don't recommend getting this before you have decent cost reduction. That's why I mentioned at the start that this is also a very good choice. So that 4% is also a little helpful. So consider getting this. Or if you see any cost reduction somewhere in the tree, I didn't check really. So you can also get those if you want. So cost reduction is very important. And combined with this, it is very powerful. So 25 damage when only one enemy is within 7 meters, so a little damage boost against bosses. As I said earlier, take this when you have enough critical chance, so you don't lose that damage that much. Critical damage is very important. So some block chance here. So this is very important. Get this one before pushing above 100 expedition. So because you will need those resists when climbing that ladder. So this basically doubles the resist on your heavy armor chest and helm. I currently don't have a heavy helm, but my chest is heavy. So this is very important to increase your resistances. So make sure you get this when you start climbing those high expeditions. So you need to check this one also, get this one to get that bonus from helmets. This is for chest, this is for helmets. So finally, some ailment chance here. There is also some maximum willpower and rage here, which is nice. And also some cost reduction here. These are very nice. So basically, to sum things up, when you first start playing this build, if you are low level, go for crit. If you have the rune, I don't think that is very high level, but where is it? I think it's about 40 level something. Yeah, this is probably when you finish the campaign or something like that. So you don't need those ailment stuff while leveling at first. So after crit, you can just go for the stance. First of all, go for the generation. When you have that ailment rune, then start taking these. Because even if you are not playing with ailment, the Bleeding Edge still is a very powerful skill. But this ailment stacking is really broken right now, so that's how you are gonna push your damage even higher. So focus on crit, generate ailments when you need. Don't forget the leech. So also this one is very important, get this one ASAP. and you can get the rest slowly. You don't need to go here at first. I advise you take this after level 50, so you can save a lot of points here. Also, if you don't have status yet, don't pick this. You don't need this. You only need this at high levels, so you don't notice that much. So this one is very important, so try to get this one ASAP for more mitigation. And let's talk about skills very quick. So for mobility I use Warpath. I'm not gonna explain every rune, just pause the video if you want and check those. So this skill is good because if the road isn't blocked by anything, you can just... Oh, what the fuck is going on? So playing with AMD processor, so this happens a lot. So let's see, yeah.
It's not possible.
You can just go as long as you want, unless you run out of rage. So this is a very good mobility skill. This is my favorite so far. But you can also use... Where is it? Wings of Ishmir. This is also good if you want. But it doesn't, you know, cover that much area when you use that. So I advise using Warpath. It's very fun. So Mark of Impurity. This gives a damage boost and also applies... Where is it? 10 stacks of curse immediately. So this is very good for single target damage. But you need to play with a dagger to use this. So normally I was playing with a dagger and a shield, but then when I got a very good two-handed X, I switched to two-handed. So this skill is still in my skill bar, but I can't use it right now.
Not right now.
So this is very good for single target damage to get that stacks and some, you know, vulnerability stuff here. So it is good if you are playing one-handed. Juggernaut is a defensive cooldown. It basically provides you absorption. So use that when you are fighting bosses or you know, those unique enemies, champions in the expeditions. Sometimes you see those guys with red skull on the map. So use that whenever you need to use it. You don't actually use this as much as you do at low levels, because once you have enough damage you will leech insane amounts, so you won't even have the time to press the Juggernaut, you know. You'll just heal instantly. This is mostly useful on low levels. Sovereign Shout to get some rage back, and also it provides a lot of bonuses. So Tracker's Reach, I already explained this. This is very important to get those status. This also helps to pull enemies. So let's say you are killing some enemies here. There are some range enemies here that they obviously won't walk into you. So you will just pull them here like this. A very good utility skill. So if you don't have 5th slot unlocked, don't take Mark of Impurity. Yeah, probably Tracker's Reach is a better idea. If you are playing with a two-handed, you can't use this obviously, so Tracker's Reach is your choice. And finally, Bleeding Edge. So let's talk about this a little quick. So this is a must. This skill, you know, feels like it is doing a lot after picking this one. It basically lets the skill continue spinning. Normally you only spin once and it stops. It disappears, I mean. Let's show that real quick. Like this. So this makes the axis follows you. So it's a very obvious choice. So this is what makes this build powerful. Increase damage per ailment stack. I'm pretty sure this is gonna get nerfed, but the build will probably be it is still gonna be very powerful, because I am dealing like 10 to 15 million criticals at bosses right now. So even if they nerf it like maybe 25%, you will still deal lots of, you know, millions of damage, at least 5 million. So the damage is huge. So even after nerf, this is gonna be very powerful. Area effect. If you think your damage isn't enough, so it obviously increases the area a lot. If you think your damage isn't that enough, you can get maybe damage. You can see it increases our damage. Here's my war cry. Ah, shit. How did I do that? Let's use some potions. Oh, alright. Let's take this one. Alright. So you can see that you will get a lot of damage by picking the damage rune. So you can play with this one until you are comfortable with your damage, then switch the area effect. So I think that's it. Yeah. Thanks for watching and see you next time.